Hello and welcome back to the Fat Dad Fishing Show. I'm your regular host, Rich Natoli, and got a pretty interesting episode tonight that I'm excited to dive into. We're going to be talking about the condition of Menhaden, Atlantic Menhaden, all up and down the coast. That affects everybody who's saltwater fishing, and that is pretty much anybody that's watching or listening to this. So it's one of those topics that, look, we got to take a break from the striped bass. We got to take a break from the tog, even before tog gets really rolling. And we're going to talk about this because it's an important issue that I think everybody should at least have some information about. We are scheduled to have two guests on with us tonight, and I'm going to jump into that in a minute. But let's get through the housekeeping first, and let's talk about the sponsors of the show. The first one, Great Bay Outfitters, Radio Road in Tuckerton, the shop that I use for everything kayak fishing, kayaking related. If you're looking for a kayak, that's where you want to go. Paul and man, Paul's nuts. Let me just tell you that Paul, the owner, is nuts. He's in the chat right now. This is a dude who finds himself with a little free time and decides that he's going to just pimp out a kayak, and he's just going to throw a Garmin Force on there. He's going to do something. He's going to throw new electronics on it. And one of the best things about the shop is it's on the water. So if there's a kayak that you're considering, go down there, get on the water, and try it out. That is always the best advice. Don't listen to people that say, go get this, go get that. 99.9% of the time, they're saying it because that's what they have, and everybody wants to think that they made the best purchase in the world. Doesn't mean it's right for you. So Great Bay Outfitters in Tuckerton, New Jersey. Make sure you check them out. Next one is Quad Stay Tuned with Kevin Driscoll. So the phone number for Kevin is 44633-5975. It's also in the bumper to this video if you want to go back and check it. If you have a Toyota truck, this is what he sells are the tunes for the Toyota truck. So think about the 4Runner, the Tundra, the Tacoma, especially the third gen Tacomas. These will get the engines more efficient, more horsepower, better torque. It's what you need for these engines to get them running at peak performance. And if you're not sure if you need it and you have a Toyota or even like a Lexus 460 or 470, reach out to Kevin. If you don't need it, he's going to say, yeah, you don't need this. But if it's something that will help you for towing boats, for the highway speeds where it's shifting in and out of gears and it's not kind of like resting where it should, he can help you out with that. Then the last one is Real Estate Me. I am a residential real estate agent with Weichert Realtors Cornerstone. My home office is in Bluebell, Pennsylvania. Also work out of Collegeville, but do everything southeastern Pennsylvania related. So if there's anything I can do, reach out to me, 267-270-1145. So that's going to cover the sponsors. And I want to just let you know. So we're scheduled to have two guests on tonight. We're scheduled to have on Captain Paul Eidman, he's captain of Real Therapy Fly and Light Tackle, fishes primarily striped bass, and we're talking northern New Jersey area. So like most of the people that watch us, New York is our number one region that watches, and then New Jersey is number two. So right where you are, that's where Captain Paul is fishing. He is also involved with Menhaden Defenders, so a 501c3. It's really looking out for the environment and Menhaden specifically. So he's going to be on, talk about what's going on with that fishery. We're also supposed to have Captain Vinny Calabro from Caranan Charters in Jamaica Bay, New York. Now, here's the issue. Captain Vinny is out today, and he's not here yet. He may not be able to get here. You know, they're captains. They work on the water. So we knew that could happen, but we have two captains, and Paul is available and he's here, and we're going to jump on with him in one moment. I want to do a little housekeeping. All right. So those of you that are new to the show, welcome. Thank you for showing up. Those that have been here for a while, you know that I am not afraid to give my opinion on anything. I just don't care. I'm not making a ton of money from this. This is not my job. This is what I do for fun, trying to help people out. So if I believe something, I'm going to tell you flat out. And there have been multiple episodes in the past where I've said, well, you can't say it, but I can. And I will. I will tell you this for this Menhaden issue that we're going to talk about. I'm not sure entirely where I stand at this moment. So Do I believe Menhaden are in trouble? I do. Do I believe the math behind it? I don't. And I don't for the same reason as I don't believe a lot of the data for striped bass. It's just been shown to be just bad data. And I don't trust the ASMFC. I've made that clear, but it it could be that we're on the same side on this. I'm not sure. So that's where I stand. And I want to also make it clear that this issue that we're talking about is Menhaden. We're not going to drift off into other things like windmills and striped bass, even though striped bass are definitely related to the Menhaden populations. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking specifically about Menhaden. If you don't know what those are, they're bunker or pogies in different areas. So that's what we're going to do. Yeah, and this is a commercial and a wreck fishing issue. And I can tell you right now, just by the title of this, the commercial guys are pissed at me, pissed. And it's a clean channel, so I'm not going to say everything that I'm thinking, but I'll just say this: I don't care if you're pissed at me because of the title of this. I don't care about anybody. My initial thought is there is an issue with Menhaden. I just don't know what to do about it at this moment. And I don't know that I believe any of the math. So that's where I stand. Now, that could evolve as we go forward. Paul is really, really in depth involved in this. He knows the numbers, he knows everything about it. So he's going to do some education here. And the last thing I'm going to say is I did not invite, or we do not have somebody from quote unquote the other side of this issue, which is the reduction fleet side of this issue on this show tonight. And the reason that nobody is on to argue is because they didn't want to come on. Nobody answered. Now, I get it. It's not a huge podcast. I get it. They're corporate attorneys and whatever. They didn't want to come on. That's fine. But don't complain. And we're not just going to have a random guy who works on one of the boats come on because want to talk to people that know what they're talking about, have the information and the data. So that's kind of where we stand. Those are the level setting for this episode. And with that said, going to bring on Captain Paul Eidman right now. Good to see you, Paul. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Rich, thank you so much.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
okay?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling great. I'm
Good.
looking forward to this episode for a while, and I've been following Menhaden defenders for quite a long time because you and I talked about this backstage. It first came up with me in the late '90s, early 2000s, where you could see all the reduction happening right up along the beach lines, and really pissed off the recreational fishing guys back then. Just, I don't even know why. We didn't know the numbers or anything. It was just we didn't want to see the boats there. And so I've kind of followed it. And then when I found Menhaden defenders online, I just kind of started following and trying to keep up with it. But things have kind of come to a head. And I want to share one thing that we started to talk about. I mentioned that to me, I've described it to people as the Menhaden or the bunker is really the first domino to fall in the line. So if it falls, it can collapse everything else behind it. But you had a different take.
Yeah, I'm not jiving on that.
Yeah, so you're not shy. So what's your take on that? I think it's the first domino. What's your thought?
It's literally the last domino. So I'm a forage fish guy, and that comes from being a fisherman. And in my mind, in order to be a good fisherman, you have to know what fish are eating. So unless you know the forage and you know the patterns that are in the water, you don't really, and I'm not a live bait guy. So I'm always throwing lures trying to match the forage. So to me, this kind of organically, um, it happened. And it just, if you know your forage fish, you know the situations that surround each one. I don't care if it's a grass shrimp, an eel, a menhaden, a herring. They all have their own habits and biology, and I'm really, really deep into that. So that led me into this rather insane rabbit hole. But to answer your question, um, it's the last stop on the train right before you go off the cliff. So this all starts out with Atlantic herring. Okay, we've completely decimated the Atlantic herring stocks in the Northeast. And a lot of those vessels, when everything goes by sectors, okay, so what they say is, okay, sector 1 is overfished, sector 2 is overfished, and then they just close the season. And
Right.
then those boats, these giant herring boats, come down, and they have to stay busy in order to stay affordable. So they start loading with Menhaden, and they became carry vessels for our bait fleet in New Jersey because they had no fish where they were. Now, key to that is providing lobster bait. Okay, so when you run out of bait, when there's no Atlantic herring left, which is the traditional lobster bait, you have to turn to another fish. Well, for years they turned to alewife and blueback herring, which were also very popular up there. And guess what?
No
Now
more.
we're at the bottom of the barrel of that too. Now, alewife and blueback, commonly known as river herring, are caught at sea and dumped overboard when these midwater trawlers are fishing for squid or scup or Atlantic mackerel or all these other fish. They use small mesh and they tow in the midwater. And guess what? They all feed on the same little microorganisms. So when the net goes through the pod, it's a disaster. And these nets are so big, they can decimate an entire river's population of river herring in one net set. So if you had river herring in one special place in Pennsylvania that you used to go as a kid, guess what? There's 10 that show up in the spring now instead of 10 million.
Right.
And I lived that. So, I mean, I can remember taking my bike to the local creek and catching river herring, in my bare hands because there were so many. And now there's none in that same creek. So here we are. Everything has prey switched over to Menhaden, and now the Menhaden are depleted. Well, what do you think comes next? I mean, there's nothing else, and we've up until recently, we haven't had the sand eels that we need. We haven't had American eels are also in the crapper.
Yeah.
So it's an ugly situation, and it's always important. The bottom of each of these conversations, by the way, is the nutrients that the Menhaden have. In other words, a striped bass can prey switch over and eat a baby fluke, but it doesn't have the same vitamins and minerals in there that it needs to turbocharge that growth. And
Right.
for that same reason, that's why these are so important commercially, because for fish meal and oil, they're getting all these nutrients and it's cheap. And if you need your puppy to grow fast or you need your salmon to grow fast to get to market, you feed them Menhaden. It's
Right.
rocket fuel.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny because in the fish too, like striped bass, yeah, they get better nutrients out of it. And it's what I tell people when we're talking about what's the best way to approach catching certain fish. And when we talk about predator fish, now a migrating striper is not, or I should say an ambush predator fish. When it's migrating, that's not what it is. It's playing a different game. But you take the summer holdovers, they become their natural ambush predators. And the big thing is they're eating to survive, and they need to get the calories back that they're expending to go after that prey when they get out there. Otherwise, there's no sense in doing it. And it's a great point. If they're going to eat a little baby flounder, that's great, but they're not getting nearly the nutrients that does impact it. And then now they have to go after two baby flounders and six
Right.
crabs and so on and so forth. And they're not quite getting to where they are. It really is, though, a domino effect that we're seeing. But my big question is, what is it going to look like down the line if, well, actually, let's take a step back. Let's talk about the numbers, because as I've told you in the before, and I said at the beginning of this, I'm not sold on the numbers because I'm not sold on the entities that are collecting the numbers. Are you able to comment on the validity of the numbers when they do these stock assessments of the Menhaden?
Yeah, I actually think, I don't know. It's, we all have our opinions about the ASMFC and basically that they couldn't, run a bodega, but it's it's true. I mean, the majority of the species that they manage are in the toilet, And if it was corporate, they would be fired
Right.
because they're simply not doing their job. The ASMFC, if I remember correctly, was started in the early 50s. And originally, the design around the ASMFC was to have all the user groups that use the fishery participate in the management of the fishery. So when you have, a commercial guy, an environmental guy, and a recreational guy sitting representing each state, it all should come together.
Right.
Well, over time, it's become largely a commercially run and lobbied organization, and that always puts business in front of the fish. And me personally, not only, I mean, in my world, in my little enviro world, I always put the fish in front of business. I don't care what it is. I mean, I run a striper charter business, and I should be in favor of status quo, let
Right.
everything go, but I'm not. I think that we need to be cautionary because we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. We're going to wake up in 2027 and go, wow, what we said in 25 was right. And now we have none. And now we go into full moratorium and I can't even do a charter.
Right.
But yet, put the fish first, and you gotta just be really really concerned about the conditions. I have to say though that the scientists, these are all marine biologists, they all provide the data to the ASMFC. I have confidence in the data collection. However, in this specific case that brought us to tonight and this vote the other day was the fact that they admitted there was a mistake. They admitted that they used the wrong numbers to calculate the ecosystem based management plan that they were going to implement. Now, when you're doing millions and millions of fish and you're off by a hair, that means a lot. So basically, what they said was, okay, we originally allocated 233,000 metric tons to the industry. Okay, that's both reduction fishing and the bait sector, bait meaning trap bait. Okay,
Right.
so now they're saying, so for years they treated Menhaden as a single species management, just like you would for a weakfish or a fluke or a striped bass. However, we lobbied very, very hard to get them to switch over to ecosystem based management because we felt that you couldn't use a menhaden as a single species because it influenced and impacted so much of the ecosystem that you have to do something different.
Right.
That took us 12 years to implement. Okay. We finally did it. They put in all the work, everything from herons to osprey to eagles to you name it, it's all in there. Okay, striped bass, omega protein, the lobster guys, you name it, they put everything in there, and they came out with a number, and they said 233 would do it. Well, guess what? Oops. Now they're saying 108,000 will do it.
Right. And but the
That's a
100.
54% cut. Okay. And that's what the science says that the ecosystem needs to survive. And what did the ASMFC vote on the other day? They used their own freaking science and they said, nah, I don't think so. We're only going to do a 20% cut. And that's how it is.
So this is where my suspicion does kind of collide with you now, right? So the data collection, here's the thing. I do believe that data collection, they do what they can. They don't have the resources. I think they could be better. Every species, I think the data collection could be better. But as I had mentioned to you, I used to work in statistical analysis for a very, very large company, like very large. And I could tell you why 4 out of 5 dentists prefer Colgate and tell you it's true. And I could tell you in the next sentence that 4 out of 5 dentists prefer Crest, and it's true. Because you can make the numbers do whatever you want, but it's also very easy to just screw it up. It's very easy. And like you said, if you're off by 1/10 of 1%, at that volume, there's a big impact. So are we sure that the 108 was right? Or
Yeah.
are they saying maybe they made a mistake and it really should have been 186?
No, no. The 186 was a fallback position that they came up with. This is just a very clever move. Um, I think that it this there are so many pitfalls to this conversation that I think we need to kind of trim it a little bit, if you will. We need to
Mm-hmm.
kind of edit it because it's just too freaking complicated. I mean, this is
Yeah.
tough stuff. I've been in a room with the smartest marine biologists, and they turn to me and go, "What the hell's going on?" Like that's how complicated fishery management is.
Yeah.
Okay. However, don't treat a striped bass, excuse me, a menhaden like you would a striped bass. In other words, it's a whole separate entity. And when you're dealing with ships that are 200 feet long, taking 2 million fish at a time, it's totally different than a fleet of boats off a Sandy Hook, jigging up stripers. Like it's a whole different scenario. They're totally related, and they are in the conversation, but let's keep the Menhaden cozy in their own little conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, everybody, a lot of your listeners, we all want to talk about, the planes and the tactics that they use and all the stuff and how unfair it is. But the reality is that they're in the business to collect protein, and they're extremely good at it. And in order to get that protein, they have to go for the fattest, oldest fish. Okay. And that brings us exactly where we are today. After 6 years of targeting at the numbers that they were told they could do, we're all yelling, by the way, on the water how the osprey have no food, or the striped bass are skinny, or we haven't seen a big school of bunker like we used to. As fishermen, we're all seeing this, but that's anecdotal evidence. That's not
Right.
scientific, you know. But
Yep.
guess what? Now we're right. It's sad. Now we're freaking right.
So was there data collection? So their data collection, that was years ago. So we've had 6 year or five, no, it's 5 years, right? 5 years of targets set on a miscalculation.
Well, it was 6 years ago that they went into the ecosystem-based management
Hmm.
method, but they do young of year studies every
Yep.
year. They feed that data in there. They do omega protein has to submit catch reports on a daily basis. So every time they set a net, there's a GPS coordinate to that. There's an amount and a quantity, and they feed that to nymphs, and it all goes into the total. However, now that Cook Seafood owns them, everything's private.
Right.
Okay, it's no longer public information. It's not a public company, so that complicates things quite a bit. So we don't know how much they catch. Like we know overall that they're under the quota, but we don't know year to date. Like did they make their quota? I mean, as
Right.
far as I know, they haven't made their quota. They haven't come close to reaching their quota in a couple of years now. And that itself, if these guys are the absolute best in the business and they're not catching their quota, that tells me that the abundance is different, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems that way. I mean, again, I can only say anecdotally, but I'm hearing anecdotally that even the schools that we had just 3 years ago are just not there.
Well,
Where you could walk across them, and they're
you,
not
you
there.
know, I fish the Navesink and the Shrewsbury and the Sandy Hook area, and up in the Raritan River and all that, and I see a lot of estuary type behavior. Very, very early in the spring, we always have a run of what we call horse bunker. Okay, meaning they're like 12 to 14 inches. These
Yep.
are the big dogs.
Yep.
Okay. And always we had that. And up until I guess the last 8 years, I've been monitoring two streams where we've had these fish kills. And all the fish, I measure them all the time, and they're always these horse bunker. The last 2 years, 24 and 25, we had torrential rains in the beginning of the year, and these big adult bunker can't tolerate that, and they literally bolted, and they're in like New Hampshire. Okay, however, that biomass of large adult fish used to be enormous, and now it's small. So when they all move out of the area, our springtime bass fishing here in New Jersey just goes off a cliff. And then you have migratory bass that are coming up the coast looking for these big meals. And guess what? They're not here. Well, you know what? Then the bass go farther up north. They come out of our reach. So
Right.
I'm trying to stay on track here. It's pretty hard.
No, yeah, no, you're
So
staying on track. I mean, it is
it's
a
all about the
complicated.
adult bunker.
Yes.
So if you have a company that they can't make it catching 5-inch fish. Okay, they got to have big fish. And the pilots, by the way, that fly over the areas before they set the nets are so skilled they can actually pick out what they want, and they
Yeah, they're
also
used to
pick
seeing
out
the size of the flash and all that stuff. Yeah.
and the depth, how far down in the water column, and all that. And also, they have to be concerned that they don't want to overload the net, because that's no good either. Okay, so they're up there, and I mean, I follow the planes every day. I follow each and every ship every day. It's like religion to me.
Yeah.
And when I see them coming up past Paul's store, I know they're on their way.
Yeah.
I just know it, because they looks like a military convoy.
Right. Oh yeah, I've seen them. I've seen them heading up the coast, and
Yeah.
usually you'd see them when you're going out tuna fishing, and
Yeah,
they're
last year
heading
was
out.
their record. They came up 6 times last year.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is one of the big debates that I'm seeing on social media. So you have the reduction, you have Omega as an example. You had the reduction fleet, and then you got
Well,
the big
Omega is
guy.
the only company, so
Yeah.
don't be shy.
Okay. Omega. And then you have the bait guys that are
Right.
supplying the shops and everything. Do you have an idea of what the breakdown is between
Well,
those two?
it's not supplying shops. That's like not even on the list.
That's what I want to kind of get
Yeah.
to.
It's
Like,
75-25. Okay, 75% goes to Virginia, period,
right,
and 25
which
is
is
split
Omega.
up. And the second largest producer is New Jersey at 11%. Okay, and the majority of that goes to a single company called Lund Seafood.
Right,
Now, this is strictly catching whole fish, putting it in a bin, putting that bin on a flatbed truck, and sending it to Maine or the Chesapeake or to Florida for crab. It's not doesn't have anything to do with, you know, fishing or chum or
right.
recreational fishing bait. That's
It's
totally separate.
commercial baits for
Right.
whatever.
So like there are local guys that throw a smaller net, like a seine net, like you and I would throw on a boat, and they're taking 1,000, 2,000 fish a day, and then loading up a truck and driving around to the tackle shops and selling them. And
Right.
they are permitted to do that. So they are totally separate.
They're totally separate, but they are included in the numbers.
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. I guess my point is,
It's called incidental catch, by the way.
yeah, it's here's my thought on it. You see, a lot of people are getting on the shops, and I don't necessarily agree with that, because it's like the whole thing. Get a little. I hate politics, man, and I'm going to say something. It's going to piss people off. The whole, like, the straws, the plastic straws, and the amount of plastic that the U.S. has thrown in the oceans. Okay, you can cut it, but at the end of the day, it's literally nothing compared to China and those over there. Like, it's such a drop in the, literally a drop in the ocean, that to me it's like, well, we're doing all this stuff. So that's the kind of the way that I think, whether you agree with that or not, the scale is so far different when you're talking about these guys netting and going to shops, as opposed to these guys that are netting 100. Let's make this clear. 100, this is reduced, 186,000 metric tons of this per year. Like, that's some serious volume that's coming out of there. And then you got these guys that are maybe taking out, less than a ton a year. For
Yeah.
for these smaller things. So I I think it's responsible. I think it would be great if they wouldn't do it, but I don't know that I think it's more symbolic than anything. I don't know how you feel about that.
Um, well, I first off, I don't think that we should allow reduction fishing in the United States.
I agree with that.
Period. I mean, as Bruce Franklin used to say, he's the author of The Most Important Fish in the Sea. That he would say, there's not a single thing that omega protein makes that can't be produced in a more sustainable way and can't be replaced. In other words, just because your great grandpappy fished for them 150 years ago and the fisheries, you know, your heritage, doesn't mean that you can continue to just strip mine the ocean at the expense of every creature and every business and every, it's totally lopsided. And unfortunately, we as recreational anglers, we don't have the organization or the commercial guys are very, very talented at what they do. They have buttloads of money. They have tons of attorneys. We're really like Menhaden Defenders, for example. We're completely on donations, right? And when we need an attorney, we have to pay for it.
Yep.
I could lose an entire year's worth of donations in one fell swoop. You know what I'm saying? Like it's hypersensitive. So this is a really tough subject.
Yeah, and I'll throw another opinion in there. As far as if the numbers are right, and you say omega, you can take. We know that we're safe with the population if you take your 108,000. I am totally fine with omega using planes, submarines, whatever the hell they need to get it out as efficiently, quickly, and cheaply as possible to take it, because I don't care. Go ahead. It's business. I'm a business guy, man. I'm all about
Yeah,
capitalism. I'm good with it. My
but that
issue
doesn't
comes with
stop.
the other part, because when you it's how much do they get? And I
Yeah,
just don't trust it, because look, I don't God, I can't say things. Um no matter who you look at, no matter who you look at on TV, no matter which biased channel you want to look at on either side, those people are being bought and sold every day. Every
yeah.
single one of them is being bought and sold every day. And I just don't, I just don't trust it, man. I just don't trust the numbers. And look, Omega, they're fine if they're within the numbers. It's just the fact that Omega I think, is buying the numbers. That's
Well,
the
what's
problem I
interesting
have.
about that, Rich, is that they accepted the science and the numbers when it told them it was okay to go to 233.
Yeah.
Now that it's that they're saying, hey, listen, the real science is showing us that we must go to 108 in order to preserve the ecology of the entire East Coast. Now they're saying, yeah, the science is bad.
Right. Yeah.
That's not the way this works,
No, it's just
and
disingenuous.
in my world, science is first. If science tells me something, I take it to the bank. This is not an opinion, And then when we see things on the water and we go, you know what? I've been doing this for 30 years and I'm seeing less and less fish, both game fish and menhaden. That's an indicator. And when you have 1,000 guys online chiming in, like on our Facebook page, holy crap, you wouldn't believe. I get messages from all over the East Coast.
Right.
No bunker here, no bunker here, only immature bunker here. Haven't seen an adult bunker. It's fascinating, and everybody is making these observations because we are the stewards of the resource. If we don't speak up, nobody's going to do it.
Right.
And I see there's a question in the
It's coming up here.
chat. It
It's
says,
probably the same one from James Flynn. How long does it take for a bunker to get to that horse bunker size?
yeah, so horse bunker is normally over 4 years old. All right. So at 2.5 to 3 years old, a bunker is sexually mature and they can reproduce. Okay. But once they get bigger than that, they can live 9 years. If nobody bothered them, they would live a full 9 years. That's another form of herring. and they follow that.
Hmm.
Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, well, it just says, look, if we all have all these little ones, I
Yeah.
it can say a lot of things. It's like you said, it's complicated, right? We
Well,
got a ton of little ones. I think we have a
you
ton of the small guys,
wow. I don't know where to.
but I don't think that we have as many as we used to. Again, anecdotally, right? Like maybe they moved. Like you could say that. Maybe they just don't. Maybe it's like other fish. We have redfish back. We have sheep's head back. Maybe they've moved to a different area and we haven't found them, and maybe the population exploded. I don't know, but what I do know is that I have not seen in the past 5 years as many bunker as I used to see.
Yeah.
Definitely not. I mean, you used to not be able to get away from them. It was ridiculous. And now when you find a really big number of them and huge schools, and it can go for miles, but they used to go like 10 miles. Now they go 2 miles. It's still big, but it's not as big as it used to be. I remember going out to don't know if you're familiar with it, but the 5 Fathom Bank, which is not, it's off of Cape May, and it's a little distance out there, and it would just be continuous bunker all the way out. And you just don't see that anymore at all.
Yeah, and for the last couple of weeks, Omega and all the other boats have been at the mouth of the Delaware Bay. So that's their right now. That happens to be where they're getting their fish. The one good thing about this lousy weather and these consistent storms, it's really bad for us, but it's really good for preserving menhaden
Right.
because they can't anything over a couple of foot seas, they're done. They can't run the net boats. The visibility is bad, so it's kind of good in a bad way.
Well,
But
we
yeah,
need those winds to bring them in. The west winds
yeah,
bring them
bring
inside
'em
that
in.
line.
But you're right. I mean, the fish do move around, but I'm going to default once again to you gotta look at this um, in a coast-wide lens.
Sure.
Okay, when the Indians were here, the Menhaden went from Maine to Florida. In other words, the entire biomass was the length of the East Coast. That's my unit of measure.
Yep.
Okay. Now we're focused on this slug of what's left, basically the middle of the biomass is in the mid-Atlantic. Okay. And yes, they do move and they move north, but there's less abundance overall. The numbers overall are way smaller than they need to be. Okay, so if this was to go to 108,000, Omega would basically send boats to the Gulf because they don't need 8 boats or 6 boats or whatever
Right.
they're running out. So they
Yep.
would shrink it, and the jobs would be lost in Reedville, and they would send the guys to the Gulf, which, by the way, is almost 2.5 times the amount of fish taken off the East Coast. And that's even more fascinating because Gulf menhaden only get to be 7 inches.
Yeah.
So you need 2 fish to equal. So you're really pillaging the Gulf by removing that many fish. And I've talked to redfish guides and spec guides, and they're all like, when these boats come in, we're done. We're done for the week.
Right.
And they're trying to implement all these buffer zones, but we could save that for another show.
Yeah. So let's get to this. So this is a basic point. KCD, I see your comment in there. I'm going to bring that up later, but another one from James Flynn. Where does the talk of these Canadian boats fit into all this? So this is Omega. Let's talk for those that are unaware of exactly
I can do
their
this.
role. Why don't you give your 1,000-foot view of who is Omega and why is this an issue?
Okay, so if you recall earlier in the show, we were talking about how Omega used to be public. Okay, so they were a Houston-based company that was doing business in Reedville for a century, and in 2018 they got bought for like 550 million by a company called Cook Seafood. Now, Cook Seafood is an almost $4 billion a year global fish producer. They predominantly do salmon and other netted species. But if you know anything about business, you know that if you're paying somebody else for bait or for fish meal or fish pellets, you're losing money. So they bought Omega Protein to vertically integrate their company. Okay. So now they have their own bait source. They have their
Right.
own food, and they continue to sell, to all the other food groups. Um, the Canadian boat thing, the boats are not Canadian. The boats are American. However, what Omega did very cleverly was to re-register all the boats in Delaware under a company called Alpha, and then they started another company called something Harvesters. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Um, but they consider themselves American. Meanwhile, it was something like the brother-in-law of the Cook family happened to live in America, and they registered everything in his name. And it's just a loophole. It's typical corporate. I mean, the reason why they registered all the boats in Delaware obviously is the tax advantages. There's certain, advantages to that. But
the Cook family is Canadian.
They're all out of Canada, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a
And
Canadian company with an American brother-in-law who,
yeah, it has to be, in order to take American fish, you have to be American. So
yeah.
they figured out a way to do it, and that's what they did. This is, and there was a lawsuit last year going against this, and it got tossed for whatever reason. But they're definitely exploiting that. But it is Americans. They are Americans in Reedville running the boats, and that's that.
Yeah, it is American. So it is, to be clear, Canadian ownership is what everybody says, even though it's technically owned by an American, but it is staffed. The people that work there and the employees are American citizens.
Yes.
They are just like us. They're just American commercial fishermen.
Yeah.
And they're kind of caught in the middle of that.
And there is another company, by the way, in the Gulf that is South African owned, that also owns a Menhaden company, and them and Omega fish in the Gulf together. So it's not uncommon for these foreign companies to build entities everywhere, because they're trying to, there's global mouths to feed here and money to be made.
Right. Man, it would just be cheaper if we just buy it back.
Yeah, and that was,
when you think about it,
I had some rich friends. They could have come up with 500 mil and just buy out Omega, and case closed. And then the lobster guys would have it be rain and bait,
Right. So what are you seeing? One of the big problems that we had, I think, is you had all these public forums, and they're always going to be attended by the reduction fleet attorneys and representatives, because they're paid to do it. It's a paid business trip. So it's like, hey, I got to go to work, this Thursday
all those
night.
Guys they put on the bus just recently to Delaware, they were all paid for the day.
Yeah. So, I mean, so they're just going to work for the day. And then you have the rec guys. And that's the difficulty. I think it's tough enough, and I don't want to mention striped bass, but I'm going to do it anyway. The fish that everybody loves in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast got almost nothing to these forums, right? I mean, I watched it online. I didn't even go. I watched it online because I got done work and it was too late to drive down to Bristol. So I did the online thing and commented online, but it's not the same because there wasn't another person standing in front of anybody. How many guys did they have at some of these things from the reduction side?
Oh, 2 busloads.
2 busloads versus how many rec guys that are local?
Yeah, whoever took the day off.
Like 20 people.
They're all retired guys, because regular guys like us are still working,
And that's the thing. So what is it that we can do for those that are concerned to help out with this as rec guys? Because, people are not, they're probably not going to want to miss too much work and not get paid for the day to go out and fight for a fish. Maybe we should. But realistically speaking, most people aren't going to do that. So what would you recommend people do if they want to get involved at this point?
It's really a legislative thing and a petition thing and a I mean, physically we can't really do anything. I mean, you should pay attention to, our website and our calls to action, because there are times where there is a meeting where we should attend, and we can try and get the people there. But this is like, we are David and they are Goliath, and it's very, very hard for us to gain traction. And at this point in time, I really should bring up the efforts lately to get President Trump's attention.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important, because this president is the first president that ever even noticed Menhaden. Okay. And so there was a video that was made that showed the squandering of American fish for Canadian profit. And that caught the president's eye. And he immediately put it on Truth Social, and then all of his followers put it on Twitter. And there was like a week of solid noise coming out of the White House. And he has an executive order in front of him to knock down reduction fishing in the United States. And all of a sudden, right after he put it out, it went to crickets. Like something happened.
Right. Just sitting on the desk unsigned.
Yeah. And this is really, I mean, I've been doing this, since 96, 95. No, sorry, 85. I've been doing this. And I have never had a door swing open like this. That
Right.
this is a genuine opportunity for us. We can all go on President's website and leave a comment. We can all say, hey, you're forgetting the little guy.
Right.
There's a lot at stake here. And the reality is that if Omega wasn't around and reduction fishing didn't exist, we would have what we saw 8 years ago. Like, it was raining stripers. It was raining whales. It was raining osprey. You know what I mean? Like, it was unbelievable. You'd go to South Amboy, New Jersey, and you could walk on the bunker.
Yep.
And there'd be whales in the middle of Raritan Bay. I knew guys that were 70, 75 years old. They'd never seen that before. They've been in Staten Island all their life. They'd never seen a freaking whale. And all of a sudden, they're taking their grandkids out to go see whales in Raritan Bay.
Yeah.
So a little bit of conservation goes a really long way with these fish. You just give them a little shot, like a 3-year, just like what happened in 2012 when they did experience a cut. These fish came back like gangbusters.
Right.
But we all said, if we're not careful, so what did the ASMFC do? They gave back all the quota that they took away over the years, and it became 233. So, the science was showing them that the stock was healthy, but unfortunately, the math was wrong.
Now, is this up next year again, or is this like a multi-year? Do they look at the Menhaden regs every year and readjust
not
them?
The regs,
or I should say the quotas every year.
Well, this particular, the ruling was that they would take 20% for the 26 season.
Right.
And then at the annual meeting at the end of 26, they would talk about 27 and 28.
But that's my point. That's my understanding, but they said they would talk about it. So, but does it automatically renew at 186, or does it go back up to the 233?
No, it's going to be
Okay. So they have to reset it.
Another number, and it should not go higher. It should go down.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me, oh crap. I wanted to look up something, that would help, because there's so many numbers here. Like quotes like this decision would still result in a 100% probability of fishing mortality being above the target. So it's just
The
like I said,
186 or the 108?
the 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 186.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's what doesn't make sense. Like it's their own stuff, and they're saying it has to be 108. So let's just make it 186.
that's exactly where I was headed. Yeah.
I mean, is there any world that makes sense? With here it is. I got to show the comment now. KCD tried to
So
follow the science and couldn't. And then I followed the money and found the science, and it certainly feels like that's what they're doing. Like the money drops somewhere.
yeah, you
Maybe
see, our
making a deal, and we
a-
don't know about it.
Menhaden Defenders as a conservation organization looked at the 108,000 that they arrived at and said, no, that's not good enough. Okay. So we actually wrote a letter to the ASMFC saying that a more aggressive cut was needed. And we wanted to set the 26 to 28 total allowable catch at 75,000, which is the current total allowable catch for the bait industry. In other words, Omega is not in the picture, and we're reallocating all the quota to the bait
To the
fishery
bait,
to
which makes
protect
sense.
the bait, lobster, crab fisheries, and totally prohibit menhaden fishing for reduction purposes. Now, if you were paying attention during the menhaden meeting, there was a scientist that came out and said that you can't restore striped bass without abundant menhaden. Now, not this comment kind of went unnoticed, but I sure noticed it. And I know we're trying like hell not to talk about striped bass, but they are linked, okay? And the clear reality is that if there's more striped bass, if there's more menhaden left in the water, when these young of year come out to feed, they're going to have more food to eat. And ultimately, you have more striped bass.
Right.
Hope I didn't go too far out on a tangent there.
No, no. And look, you did bring it back to what's going to pique people's interest, right? Like the issue with the striped bass is the recruitment, right?
Right. Well,
And
they're
one of
currently overfished.
yeah, well, but a lot of it was the recruitment for the last 2 years, right? Is a big
Well,
part
the
of it.
recruitment means how many fish make it into adulthood.
Yeah, but if you think about it,
The
that
young of
does.
year, the young of year have been bad in the Chesapeake for 7 years.
So
Okay,
think about that, and it does relate directly to the populations of these high nutrient fish that are not there, right? It
exactly.
does relate. You and I had again another conversation we had offline about this. Is you look at birds of prey and what has happened with the birds of prey with the Menhaden drop, right? So you don't believe there's a Menhaden drop, that's fine, but there is an anecdotal related thing happening with birds of prey along the coast, and that's the eagles and the ospreys. For the past 2 years, they're not laying eggs. And part of the belief is that it's because there aren't menhaden, which is the best fish for them to get in order to be able to sustain eggs and young. And if
Yep.
they're not there, then they don't nest and they don't lay eggs. They don't have babies.
Yeah.
And there's another related thing to it, and it comes and but they don't need little fish, they need big fish. You're not going to see an eagle or an osprey diving down on a 6-inch
Right.
peanut bunker. They maybe a six, oh no, 6 inches is probably too small,
Yeah. And
but it is
all
over there.
season long, people should know every time I go out, if I come upon a school of bunker, I get my little treble hook out and I snag 10 fish and I measure 10 fish. And up until last month, I was measuring every single fish at 6 or 7 inches. Now I'm measuring every fish at 9 inches. This time of year, I should be measuring 12-inch and over fish,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they are just not there. Okay. Now we used to look at these small baits as gold, like when we were live lining and stuff. We're like, oh wow, if you had a 9-incher, that was like, if you had a spot that size, or
Yep.
it was like really perfect for bait. Because some of the bunker used to be so big, it was like, what the hell's going to eat this?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You just
But
toss them
but they
back in.
did swallow it, no
Yeah.
problem. But in our heads, we're always looking for that juicy, that little nugget. It's
I
kind of
used to throw them back because they were too big for the hooks that I had tied on. I was like, I don't want to tie on a new hook. I'll just cast again and try to snag something else. Toss it right
interesting.
back in. It's too lazy. I wasn't using those 12-aught hooks.
Yeah. Um, hmm.
Well,
Where do we go from here?
and I think that's the thing. The look, it's not an easy issue to know where everything is, because again, like we're relying on science, and it is a really, I mean, look, we talked before this for 35 minutes, and I still feel like I don't know everything that I could know, should know,
But
but I
that's what
do know that
makes
I'm
the
concerned.
subject cool.
What's that?
That's what makes the subject cool.
Well, it
Believe me,
is.
you know something? When I first got into this, I never ever would have predicted that I would be taking pictures of salmon in Whole Foods, or doing videos, or looking at in-depth pet food analysis. Like I didn't get it. I was just a fisherman, you
Right.
know? And then all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, there's this protein industry is epic.
Yeah.
And then so as the world's population grows, by the way, reduction fishing, it's the smallest in the world in the United States. We're like 12% of the entire world. So Peruvian anchoveta is completely way bigger than us. So predominantly the fish oils and the fish meal is from that species, not from Menhaden. That's
Right.
just an American thing. And
Right. But
if I
but
could just
it's
talk for
but
a
it's
moment about how the market is divvied up. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's important. I'd like you to, but I will just say this: we don't have the size fishery that they're fishing either, right? I mean,
Right.
Atlantic Menhaden is not. We don't have the area and the populations to support anything like that. So while it's 12% of the total, it is 100% of our total, and
Yep.
that to me is where it comes in. People, America first, great. It's not happening. It's not happening right now. And even if it's an American company and it's owned by people that are 100% American, it's not American people first. It's one American business first is the way that I'm feeling about Omega,
And
right? The
feeding
rest of the stuff
Canadian
I'm still
profit.
not sure about. Like, I'm still not sure. Like the bait, I'm kind of on
Mm.
board with the bait continuing. I really am, because it supports all those other industries, the crabs and lobsters and all that stuff. I feel that to me, it's difficult for me to say, shut that down. Like I wouldn't want to see it reduced on Omega and on them. I want to see Omega cut all the way until we get to the number. And then if we need any other cuts, then let's have another conversation. That's just the way that I feel about it right
Well,
now.
you need to look at it's the utility of scale. Okay. If you have a 45-foot boat going out for bunker versus a 196-foot boat,
Yeah.
that in itself is a sign. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have always been a supporter of family owned small commercial fishing. We feel that is the fabric of the United States. That's what this country was built on.
Right.
Okay. There's no reason for us to assault them because they're not doing anything wrong. It's God, my brain just spins when I talk about this stuff.
Yeah. But I would say, I don't know that on the water, I don't know that it's going to sound bad. I don't know that Omega is doing anything wrong. They're doing what they're allowed to do. It's the question is, should they be
Oh,
allowed to do it?
no, it's not a matter of illegal or legal. It's a matter of adjusting your harvest
Yes.
to the ecological conditions. And right now, our ecological conditions suck.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, like I say this all the time. Our coast, our entire coastal ecosystem, including the Chesapeake Bay, is dying a death of 1,000 cuts. So now is not the time to look for maximum sustainable yield of the most important fish in the sea.
Right.
It's wrong. Okay. And all the time you hear Omega talking about what a good steward they are of the resource, and they planted one of their old boats as a reef. Well, that's wonderful. But you know what? When a million guys are saying, get the F out of the Chesapeake Bay and stop netting and taking all these fish out because the bay is dying, they turn a blind ear. They go, hey, you know, my grandfather fished this. It was no problem. Well, you know what? There weren't all the other conditions happening at the same time.
Right. Right.
So, so in that, yes, the population is shrinking, the water is changing, the climate is changing, all these factors, and they have to change too. You can't focus. You got to shift to algae, shift to whatever, you know,
Sure.
but you can't keep raping and pillaging because you're going to wake up one day and guess what? There's going to be nothing there. Our whole mission in the beginning was to have a lobsterman in Maine be able to send his kid out in the morning for bait. Okay? That was like all we wanted to do was expand that biomass that was currently in the mid-Atlantic, that was very small, and grow it. And sure enough, it did.
Yeah.
But it also got warmer. So in the 20 years that I've been doing this, the temperatures have changed, and those older, bigger fish are now in the Gulf of Maine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
guess what? Maine is finally able to get their own bait. But guess what? That pisses off Lunds in New Jersey because that bites into the profit that they can send up to Maine, which
Yeah.
is why they side with Omega.
Right. Well, I'll side with the lobster guy in Maine every time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I
like I
mean,
said, I'm a capitalist. I'm all about making money, but
but that's
I'm
great.
always going to go with the small guy.
But it's in moderation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if they know that they only have a certain amount, like let's say they have 3,000 traps, they're only going to take a certain amount of fish because these things spoil the moment the clock is ticking. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
the rancidity rate on bunker is extremely high.
We're all wreck guys. We know that.
Yeah,
You don't leave it
exactly.
out on deck at all. You leave it on deck, you're done. You're done with it. All right, go back before, because we're at our hour, but I want you to go back to the total size of the reduction fishing and how that relates.
Total size of
Yeah, so we're 12% of what's out there in reduction fishing in the United States. How does that compare to other countries and other, where?
oh, I can't give you statistics on Peru, but the reason why I bring that up is because even Peru sets limits on how many anchoveta they can bring in. We don't do that. There's no limit in the Gulf of Mexico for Menhaden.
There's
There's no
no
limit.
limit.
There's a limit here on the East Coast, but there's none in the Gulf.
Ah,
So that's reckless, you know?
yeah, it sure feels that way. Do they do the same studies down there on the population?
I think they do, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I would need to spend some time in South America before I could really,
Yeah.
speak on that.
I was gonna say, you got any spare time now?
But Peruvian anchoveta is, and it's basically a small anchovy. It's like a 3 or 4 inch fish. So you need a lot of them to come out of the water. But
Yeah.
they have a whole, an anchoveta lawmakers, and they sit there and go, okay, we're gonna get to a certain point and then stop the fishery because otherwise we're not gonna have any fishery in the future.
Right. Like they do with crabs up in Alaska.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But something, if we're going to try and make sense out of commercial fishing and the logic, I'm a catch and release fisherman. I do eat fish. I don't eat every fish. I don't eat striped bass because I know that they're overfished, and that would be hypocritical of me to eat a striped bass. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I'll eat a black sea bass instead.
Right.
You know, I'll purposely go for a food fish if I need food. Um, but I won't shoot myself in the foot. It certainly, we have enough examples, whether it's cod or the list is endless.
Yeah,
Just fish
it's
them
everything
down.
we used to fish for.
You just fish till you can't,
Right.
you know, and that doesn't make sense to me. You got to have moderation, otherwise you have no future.
Yeah. I it's always the guys that say, I remember we used to just bail bluefish and throw them in trash cans, and we get back and we'd clean as many until we got tired and dump the rest out. So I'm going to keep doing that. It's like, didn't you learn anything from that? We used to throw them in trash cans too on the
Yeah.
boat. We used to clean them all and eat them and give them away, but doesn't mean it was right. Didn't mean it
I
helped.
can tell you that after the first striped bass moratorium, we were watching and we said, if we are not careful, the same exact thing is going to happen over again. Now I'm going to show my age here, okay? But we saw it coming. And look where we are right now.
Yeah.
We're there.
We are. This is where you and I diverge a little bit. I again go back to the numbers, and I think that we're going to have better numbers next year with the data collection on the striped bass. But I do believe that there's something needs to get figured out.
You know what? I don't think we're that far apart. I don't agree with managing fish with arithmetic. Okay. I believe that we all need to behave like deer hunters, and we all need to have a piece of the data collection. In other
Yeah.
words, when you and I go kayak fishing and we get four and they're all 25 inches and we throw them back, that's data. When you and I go fishing for 6 hours and don't catch anything, that's data.
Yeah.
And that's important data. That data is not being collected. I mean, it is, I shouldn't say it's not being collected. It's, the system is screwy right now, and they're
Well,
using it to extrapolate numbers.
yeah.
Like they just came out with this mortality number that they adjusted down from 9% to 4%. I
Right.
can tell you right now that if my mortality rate on my catch and release boat was 4%, I wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? That's too
Yeah.
high.
It is. It is. Yeah.
You know, but if I'm running a 6-pack chart and everybody's got eels and bleeding fish all over the place, that is way higher than 9%.
Could
So,
be.
you know, you gotta, I mean, I'm pretty hardcore. You know, I have no barbs. I have thousands of lures on my boat, not a single barb. I got rubber nets. I have forceps. You know, I treat these things like gold when they come on board. So it's totally different on my little charter boat than it is on a head boat, you know, running
Right.
out of Belmar.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's it is a tough topic. The striped bass, especially. Yeah, I was okay with the status. I kind of like the status quo because I do want to see the data though, because they screwed it up so bad before. I want to see where it is. I don't necessarily know that Menhaden is in that same category though, because Menhaden, first of all, it's a foundational block.
Right. Well, that's why we shifted it to ecosystem-based management, because it
Yeah.
doesn't fit. It doesn't. Every single fish that the ASMFC manages in the history of the ASMFC has always been done by how much fish does the commercial fishery need, and then everybody else.
Right.
They work backwards.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and they
with
don't
Menhaden, you
even
can't do that.
collect. They didn't even collect for the striped bass. All the charter captains that they require them to keep the logs, and then they never look at them.
Yeah,
What
I've
the
heard
hell's the
that a
point of
lot. A
that?
lot of New York guys, I think, that they always talk about this mysterious box of data that sits somewhere in somewhere in Woods
Yeah.
Hole.
It doesn't make any sense to me, but it does kind of, because it is a government organization. So, okay, I get it. You spent $2 million to create a website that anybody that's my age could probably do in 10 minutes. It took what? It took Elon one day.
Yeah.
Just as an example, one day they fixed the website that they had spent $2 million on, and they couldn't get it working because it was
Yeah.
broken. It's stuff. It's not a pro Elon, not a negative anything thing. It's just that's government. That's how it works. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just
So
mistrustful of it.
if we're getting close to our time,
Yeah,
I would be remiss to say that, Menhaden Defenders is a real grassroots, boots on the ground organization, and we're made up of birders, we're made up of fishermen, we're made up of fly fishermen, bait fishermen, everything. And all we want to see is abundance and sustainability. That's our goal, okay? And we can't do it without everybody's participation.
right,
Like when you go on the website or you go on the Facebook page, it's not enough just to lurk around. That's not helping anything. You should really be asking, hey, what, like you did, like, what can we do? Where
right,
are we at right now? And right now, I do believe that we're at the point where we have to appeal to the Secretary of Commerce, who is over the ASMFC and NOAA, and we have to say, look, very funny, Palsy. We have to say, look, we're at a critical point right now, okay? And we need your help. And if we need to rewrite the executive order or however it was written, it's not tweaked correctly or whatever it is, let's do this. But just know that if you overfish and remove every menhaden, it's the end. That's
right.
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. Well, so everybody, it's Menhaden Defenders on
.org.
.org, but on Facebook. So if you're interested, go check it out. There's a lot of information on there. I mean, you can kind of get lost in there just learning. And I've gone through it many times over the past couple of years. I want to thank you for coming on. I do appreciate it. It's great information. And look, we all like to talk about how to catch more fish, but every once in a while we need to stop and talk about what do we need to do to make sure we can continue to catch fish. And I
Exactly.
think this is, no matter where you land on this, whether you're a commercial guy, whether even if you're an Omega guy, you should be concerned about the numbers. And
Yeah.
if they're
I
not
am
right,
deeply, deeply concerned about our hobby.
yeah, yeah. Well, the hobby for me and the you know the income for so many other people. So,
Yeah.
Paul, if you would hang on after we end this, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Next week we're going back to less serious, but more serious because we're going to have Frank Mahalik on, and we're going to talk about TOG because that is coming up quick. And Frank is up in Rhode Island right now catching double digits. So he's going to be back fresh off of a trip, hopefully with a lot of energy. And we're going to go through TOG fishing right as we're coming up to the New Jersey opener, where it's going to start getting good in New Jersey and South coming up. And then we're going to announce a few more guests next week. Everyone, thanks for coming in. And if you're going to do the TOG trip on the Osprey out of Atlantic City on December 7th, I think there's only 10 or less spots left. So make sure you sign up for that now. The boat is almost full. And if you're going to go, let me know. It would be nice to know who's going and meet everybody out there on the boat. So with that said, everyone, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next Monday. Until next week, get out there, get on the water, and get